Hi little skeletons, it's Disney Queen Skelly here, and this is kind of an impromptu video that I kind of thought of literally at time of recording on August 25th. I don't know whether I'm going to post this either the day after editing or I'm going to make it a part of my daily uploads. Most likely I'm probably going to make it like a day after video. Just recently, I don't know why, but I felt like rewatching a lot of Disney animated movies, and just strictly the animated ones, not like the live action ones or anything like that. So I've been going through Disney's list of animated movies, alphabetically mind you. I just kind of wanted to talk about my experience watching these. Now, none of these are going to be Disney media reviews. I will obviously do that separately, and I don't know when I'm going to start those back up again, but I want to start them up soon, hopefully. But for now, this little series is going to be just me talking about my experience watching all of these Disney animated movies once more. Well, not once more, but like kind of like in order, I guess you could say. And I've only gone through like a few of them, so this is again part one. There's obviously going to be more parts to this. But part one is going to start with 101 Dalmatians and go all the way to Atlantis, the Lost Empire. With the animations list, obviously throughout the weeks and months, Disney's going to be adding more stuff to it. Also, not to mention, there are some movies that I just don't like in the animated section, and I'm not going to watch them. I will go over them, but eventually I will have to watch them for the Disney Media Review. But until then, I am not going to bother. So we're going to start with 101 Dalmatians. I personally love this movie. I remember when Disney Plus first launched and a lot of their animated classics was actually on the app. And I remember when I was younger watching these movies and loving the animation style, loving the sound effects, loving everything about it, the voice acting. And 101 Dalmatians is definitely one of those movies that I can appreciate its tone, its quality. And I mean, of course, animation has gotten better over the years, but at the same time, seeing something like 101 Dalmatians when it was made back in, 1961, I will definitely say these movies obviously have aged, but in a way, they've aged in a good way. Like, they've aged in a really retro style way, which I can really, really appreciate. And of course, you can never go wrong with seeing Cruella de Vil freak out over puppies. And I will say, as much as I loved the movie Cruella, and as much as I love meeting her in the parks, I will say that Cruella de Vil is probably one of my least favorite, and if not one of the most notorious villains out there, just because she wanted to skin and kill some puppies. I mean, come on, what person does that? I skipped over 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure, because I'm not about that sequel. A Bug's Life is obviously my favorite Pixar movie, so watching it again, I can still quote it front, back, left, right to this day, and I kind of regret not watching it with hubby. I started this marathon sometime last week, and I was watching it with my dad, which he really enjoyed it. But this is one movie I actually really like watching with hubby because he and I can quote it together, and we do often quote it a lot, especially the one scene where Flick is freaking out over losing the food supply for the grasshoppers, and Princess Ada's like, "What did you do? It was an accident." Literally, he and I quote that all the time. They just added A Christmas Carol. I didn't see like on the list when I was watching these, so that was probably just recently added, so I'm gonna watch that pretty soon because I do like that movie. A Goofy movie, obviously you guys know a Goofy movie does have a very, very special place in my heart. I love meeting Max at the park, especially because since he's a flirt in the movie with Roxanne, he's a flirt at Disneyland with any girl or guy, you know. He's definitely a flirt when it comes to girls and like whoever flirting with him because, you know, he loves Roxanne, so he's got that lovey-dovey personality. And in watching a Goofy movie, I can still quote that to this day. And that was also one I didn't watch with hubby, which I kind of regret because he and I quote that again, left, right, center, up, down, whatever. It's one of our more favorite movies to watch together. The Adventures of Ichabod Crane and Mr. Toad, I've only actually seen that 3 times now, at least to my knowledge. According to my mother, I used to watch a lot of Disney movies growing up as a kid that I don't even remember to this day. But I love The Adventures of Ichabod Crane and Mr. Toad. I will say out of the two, I think The Adventures of Ichabod Crane is probably my favorite. Nothing wrong with Mr. Toad. I do love The Wind in the Willows. I think it's actually a pretty funny section of the story. You know, the idea of just Mr. Toad causing mischief left and right, and you know, we have the Mr. Toad ride at Disneyland, and of course in Storybook, We have a Mr. Toad section in there as well. And if you've ever ridden Storybook Land canal boats, we actually have the song Nowhere in particular playing over the speakers. But I think out of the two, Ichabod Crane and Mr. Toad is definitely my favorite, or Ichabod Crane is definitely my favorite because for one, when I went to the first ever year of the Oogie Boogie Bash, they had the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane starting the parade, and that was such a cool experience, and we are gonna go again this year. I am stupid excited to make that video for you guys and make the announcement and have us go live that day. It's gonna be a lot of fun because we're going Halloween Day. You know, this is a movie that hubby actually grew up with. He used to watch it a lot, to the point where he can quote it much like A Bug's Life or a Goofy movie, and I did get to watch this one with him, so it was a wonderful experience. I still love the animation style, and I love also the fact that these older movies pretty much have no filter because of what Disney once was before all of this stuff nowadays. I'm not going to get into that or else I'm going to get super heated. Seeing what Disney's non-filtered self was like back then is actually pretty interesting. That's another reason why I admire the older movies, is because you can just see the unfilteredness that Disney once was, and it's interesting to see what people thought back then, like portraying women, other cultures, and it's, of course, it's not okay. Like, obviously how people were treated back then was not okay, but it's interesting to see it in a kid's cartoon that you typically wouldn't really find nowadays. So in terms of watching all three Aladdin movies, it ended up going 1, 3, 2 instead of 1, 2, 3 because I guess they counted the. Oh no, King comes before Return. Okay, my bad. Yeah. Okay, so that's correct in alphabetical order. Okay, so that's pretty much, I would say, my favorite Disney movie sequels, next to an extremely goofy movie. But the Aladdin series is one of my personal favorites in terms of all the sequels, again, other than maybe like an extremely goofy movie and Atlantis Milo's Return. That one is a pretty good sequel. With the first Aladdin movie, hubby and I can quote that as well, and it's a very funny movie. I personally love it. It's not one of my favorite Disney movies, I'll tell you that. I know a lot of the times when I do the Disney quizzes, you'll hear me saying that my first ever Disney crush was Aladdin, and a lot of the answers I give, like who's your favorite Disney prince out of the following, I'll usually pick Aladdin. But that's only really because the other options they give me, either I don't necessarily like that prince too much or the movie too much, something along those lines. But Aladdin is a great watch for me, and it does have a special place in my heart because of Robin Williams. I do miss the man so much, and watching his movies make me very, very happy, especially movies like Mrs. Doubtfire or Aladdin or anything like that. It just makes me happy. Or like the movie Toys even. I love the movie Toys. That one's a good one. Robin Williams didn't do the second movie, Return of Jafar, and he also missed out on but he skipped out on the Aladdin series and was replaced by Dan Castellaneta, who voices Homer Simpson in The Simpsons. So in Return of Jafar, obviously it was Dan Castellaneta, but it was great because he wasn't doing Robin Williams comedy, he was doing Dan Castellaneta comedy, and obviously, you know, he will never replace Robin Williams as a genie. But I'd also feel like at the same time he did Genie justice, because when I was younger, obviously I wasn't paying attention to like voices or anything like that, because as a kid, at least for me, you only pay attention to what's in front of you. You only pay attention in the movies. So in watching the Aladdin series, I never really knew actually that Robin Williams did not come back as Genie in Return of Jafar. Hubby actually told me that just recently this year, and as we watched it, I looked it up, and turns out it was Dan Castellaneta, and I was like, okay, well, that's a happy name to see because I love him as Homer Simpson. And as he and I were watching Return of Jafar, we actually could hear more Homer Simpson than anything else, and it actually made us really happy. Now, obviously, the quality in terms of animation from the first Aladdin movie to the last two Aladdin movies is extremely different. And that's because the last two Aladdin movies were the Disney home animated style, and it was just a straight-to-home release DVD, so it wasn't necessarily in theaters, and it really had nobody to impress unless you bought the DVD, which my family did, and I loved watching the series as a kid. Now, out of these three, I will say that Aladdin, the King of Thieves is actually my favorite Aladdin movie out of the three, and it's just because, for one, I love the guy who voices Aladdin's father. He's got a very deep voice, a very nice voice. Now, mind you, I think he's a bit older now, and I don't think I'm remembering correctly he's the most attractive guy, but TBH, as long as you have a really nice voice that can put me to sleep, we are good to go. Not to mention the storyline's actually pretty cool. The soundtrack for it is amazing. My favorite song in there is Welcome to the 40 Thieves, and it's obviously Aladdin and Jasmine's wedding, and it's what concludes the entire Aladdin series. Now, in looking at the gap between Return of Jafar and Aladdin the King of Thieves, I don't know if the TV series happened in between those 2 years or if it happened after King of Thieves. But either way, I think it happened after Return of Jafar, and then Aladdin King of Thieves is what concluded the entire Aladdin series. I'm going to have to look that up eventually later. Nonetheless, it's a great series. I love it. Moving on to Alice in Wonderland, I still love this movie. It's another nostalgic movie for me in terms of animation, sound effects, voice acting, and of course my favorite song, Golden Afternoon, which plays at work a lot, so I'm surprised I'm not sick of it yet. But then again, it's like I said, it's my favorite Alice song, and I love seeing how the music not only emphasizes what's, like, obviously nowadays background music is just background music to kind of emphasize the tone of a scene. Back then you would actually hear music when it came to actions, walking, moving your hands, talking, dancing, whatever the case may be. The song went along with the actions, and Alice in Wonderland is definitely one of those movies that really represented that. Especially the scene where the queen is like, oh, you gotta curtsy, turn your knees out, and you could hear the sound effects going as Alice, or not the sound effects, but the music going as Alice moves as if it's like in sync with each other. And that's definitely something I can commend for Disney back then, and it's something I love seeing, and I can't wait to get further into the classic movies and really just, appreciate the tone and the style that Disney once had back then. But I also still love the modern Disney movies that we have today. And of course, seeing the cookies and everything to eat and drink in the movie still makes me hungry to this day. An Extremely Goofy Movie is a movie I grew up with, and it's one that obviously has a special place in my heart. We had the DVD for it, so I would watch that one a lot more often than I would watch the Goofy movie, the original movie. But either way, both movies do have a special place in my heart. And of course, Max will always be literally one of my top Disney crushes. And I understand, like, the whole thing about going to college. It's a very stressful time for some parents, because especially if your kids are living in dorms or frats or sororities or any kind of housing and they're out of the house, obviously it's going to be pretty big for the parents to let go of their kids, especially because college for kids starts at either age 18 or 19 depending on your age range when you graduate high school. And I can relate to Goofy in a sense that, yes, he's going to miss his son, yes, it's going to be a hard time, but I can also relate to Max in the fact that he's going to have not only freedom to go to college, but freedom from his parents and learning how to be independent. But of course, that's all stopped when Goofy got fired and he has to go back to college. And I think definitely in this one, as well as in the first Goofy movie, Max learns to appreciate his father a bit more. But one flaw I kind of find, in the first movie, he obviously has a stronger bond with his dad towards the end after the Powerline concert. Spoiler alerts if you haven't seen the movies. But when you go back to An Extremely Goofy Movie, he goes right back into his old habit of hating his dad, resenting his dad. Kind of makes no sense to me, because if we resolved that in the previous movie, I don't know if it's just teenage rebellion or something like that, because I can totally understand that as well. I feel like all of us went through a rebellious teenager phase at one point or another. I know I did, but as I got older, I kind of mellowed out and I was like, okay, my parents are here, they're here to take care of me, and that's what they're here for. So I don't know, that's just kind of one fault that I have in it. But obviously, towards the end, again, spoiler alert, when Goofy announces that he's going to be working at the college, which doesn't seem to be true, Max is like, oh my god, what do you mean you're working at the college? Again, it's not true, but it's just kind of funny to see how the two of them are together. And it definitely is a very good take on a father-son or mother-daughter, son-father, whatever, parent-child relationship. And I think the idea of them, reconciling together a lot of the times and eventually seeing eye to eye, it's a very good movie, and that's why I can appreciate it, because I can also relate to maybe not having the strongest relationship with one of my parents, but at the same time, nonetheless, like Max loves his father, I do love both my parents. I skipped Anastasia for personal reasons. I am not a huge fan of the movie. Hubby loves it, but me personally, I can't stand Anastasia. I know eventually I'm gonna review it for this channel, and I'm gonna try to be as unbiased as possible, but truth be told, I am not promising shit. The Arendelle Castle Yule log is just when at Christmas when they have that channel on TV that just shows a fire log and it has like Christmas music playing. Basically the same thing, so it's not one that I would just watch just for entertainment purposes. Aristocats. Again, another personal favorite of mine. I love the Aristocats. I love the story. And as an adult, I love watching these movies back and like picking up on the things that I missed as a kid. And recently, hubby and I had been watching the React channel, and there were some where kids react to adult jokes. Most of the kids obviously don't get it. One kid was a little old enough to actually understand some things, and I was like, we were like, ooh, no. But obviously there's some things in these Disney movies that are meant for the adults, because obviously if the kids are watching it, the adults are watching it with them, and you need those little cushions where the adults can have a good laugh and the kids can just laugh at all the pretty colors and the music that's going on. And Aristocats is definitely one of those movies where I didn't really understand that Thomas O'Malley was hitting on Duchess for a very long time until like the end when I saw the two of them get together, because the whole journey to me as a kid was them just getting back home and Thomas he did fall in love with Duchess. You know, I didn't really see the whole concept of him flirting with her, and then after he found out she had kids, it's nice to see that he didn't run away, and it's nice to see that he still wanted to be there for her and her kids. And obviously the music is banging. I love Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, especially during Mickey's Mixed Magic, the fireworks show that we have going on at Disneyland. It's an amazing remix, and Aristocats will always have a special place in my heart. Atlantis, Milo's Return, and Atlantis, The Lost Empire. I watched them out of order because Milo's Return was considered M and Atlantis, The Lost Empire, was regarded as a T, so it came after Milo's Return. I will say Milo's Return is a very good sequel to The Lost Empire because you get to have, an anthology type movie instead of a whole subplot, or instead of a whole plotted movie. Obviously, Atlantis, The Lost Empire has an amazing soundtrack that I have downloaded on my phone, and not to mention it really showcases what people can be like when it comes to greed and money and fame and just being an overall horrible person as portrayed by the main villain in the movie. And obviously, there have been talks about people wanting this movie to become live action because of how amazing and beautiful it is as a movie, and there have been people who have actually mapped out who should play who. And now hubby and I have attempted to do this as well. I think the only ones we can really agree on, at least me personally, I would love to see Tom Holland as Milo, and then as Kida, I would love to see the girl who played Gamora, I can't remember her name, but I'd love to see her as Kida. And then Terry Crews as Sweets. Those are really the only ones we can agree on. Maybe Danny Trejo as the guy who likes explosives. Maybe, possibly. And there's obviously a lot of and I think I can see what's the girl's name? Jane Lynch. I can totally see Jane Lynch as a blonde chick who is part of the whole expedition thing. But obviously, I don't ever think Disney is going to make an Atlantis live action movie. And even if they do, I just hope they pick a good cast. At least cast Terry Crews as Sweets. That is all I ask. And cast the girl who played Gamora as Kida. Those are really the only two that I can see personally without really racking my brain about it. Right now I'm in the process of watching Bambi, and I haven't completed it yet, which is why I'm not going to talk about it. I'm also not watching the sequel. I've already seen the sequel. It is complete garbage in my opinion. And then after that we're going to get to two very difficult movies for me that I really need to just get over, kick my own ass and just get it over with. So either whether I watch it alone or I watch it with hubby, who knows, I may continue it today with him. So that way I have someone to watch it with. But fingers crossed for me that I can get through the rest of this pretty easily. I'm on the B's now. I went through all the A's that I'm interested in. So who knows, maybe each part will be a letter. You never know, depending on how many movies I actually get through. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching it. This is going to be a pretty interesting series to go through with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments about any of the movies that I mentioned today, please let me know in the comment section down below. But other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, little skeletons. Stay safe, and I love you guys.